Azzy and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be reviewing 100 of the greatest books of all time. Now, I've been starting this as a personal challenge to myself. I've already read a few of the books on my list, and I kind of went, well, you know what? If I'm going to do this as a challenge, why not actually record myself giving my reaction, giving my review. This list for me, I've been basing off the BBC's Goodreads list. They've got a list of 100 greatest novels, but I have looked at multiple lists, including Penguin's list and a few other random ones, because some of them kind of focus more on just classic literature, some of them focus on more modern. So I kind of want a little bit of a balance. That does mean that I'll probably end up going over 100 books, but I'm really trying to focus on books that are kind of making their way onto multiple lists that I am finding. So today I'm going to be starting with my first book review, number 32 on the BBC's top 100 books, but it actually made its way right up to number 4 on Penguin's list of 100 must-read classics. So without further ado, here is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel García Márquez. I added it to my Booktopia cart because I found a cheap copy. Don't even think I read the blurb before I started, and have been flying blind with this one. So 100 Years of Solitude charts the multi-generational story of a family who live in the fictional village of Macondo in Colombia. The patriarch of the family is Jose Arcadio Buendia, who's kind of this enterprising and curious spirit, and he's actually also the founder of this isolated community. So the book takes on multiple characters' viewpoints and tracks the victories, the pains, the battles, at times the incestuous romances, self-inflicted pain, and just everyday life of the members of this family. The isolation at the start of the book sees Macondo as this kind of innocent, utopic vision. And in the first pages, we see this through the village's contact with this group of roving gypsies led by Melquiades. I'm butchering that name. I'm very sorry for any Colombian out there. But anyway, this gypsy, he brings these rare and intriguing instruments from other parts of the land for trade and for sale. And Jose Arcadio proceeds to barter for and to use these instruments. Little spoilers, but not very much because it's all first chapter type stuff. So Jose buys a sextant and a compass, and he proceeds to kind of lock himself up in his study for months and months on end, and starts making these amazing scientific discoveries, such as, oh my god, the Earth's round like an orange. Who would have guessed it? That's kind of how the rest of the world feels in this, because he's kind of really proud of these scientific discoveries, which are already foregone conclusions to the rest of the world. So I was pretty captured at the beginning of this book because of just this really kind of cute character that we are introduced to, that you kind of go, oh, that's kind of sweet. Unfortunately, soon after I put it down for probably about a month, I'd say. Main reason for this is, I hate to say the necessary, but rather reader unfriendly naming conventions. The second reason was probably due to my own expectations. So when I couldn't see where it was going or what character arc and story I was really meant to be feeling invested in, I kind of had that, oh god, it's going to be a tome feeling. And when I say non-friendly naming conventions, to give you a taste of what I'm talking about, in this family, we have characters, yet again, excuse my pronunciation, but we have Jose Arcadio Buendia, Orleano Seguido, Orleano Babliona, Orleano, then, get this,
17 sons. Oh, shit. Jose Arcadio Buendia, Jose Arcadio, Jose Arcadio Esquinguida, Jose Arcadio. So that's 5. Then we have Colonel Aureliano Buendia, Aureliano Esquinguido, Aureliano Babilona, Aureliano. Then, get this, the 17 sons of Colonel Aureliano, each also called Aureliano.
Too much. Just too much. So, at least in my version of the book, there is a family tree. Thank God. Just there. And I found myself referring to this a lot. However, because it's all pretty well based in one location and there is no real specific breakup in the books or generations crafted into the structure of the novel, at least from my first read that I could see clearly, I am pretty sure that at times I was confusing different characters with each other or crossing over some of the family storylines. And I did get better at this as I went on and I started to learn the character traits and personalities. But at the beginning of the book, it was a little bit of a killer. The other thing I realized as I went was this all ties into a major theme for the book. These characters have the same attitudes and relived experiences being repeated again and again and again. And the naming conventions tie into this. So in this book, names equal character types. The way that time played out in the book, and at times flashed forward and flashed back, it honestly didn't matter to me that at times I may have confused the characters. The fluidity of time is such that at different moments you felt like 1,000 years may have played out and not just 100. But you know what? For all the difficulty I had in starting this book, I'm just really, really happy that I picked it up again. And that's because that the journey that the reader is taken on in this book is kind of spectacular. Even though I struggled in the first part of the book, maybe the first quarter, the last half I read in a day. I sat out in the sun. I read for about 8 hours or 9 hours straight. I just could not put the book down until it was done. And I think part of that is because Marquez has written this book in a style that is called magical realism. And that's something that I'd never heard of until I read this book. But it's when the mundane becomes magical and the magical can become mundane. So what in other ways is gritty, this kind of realistic depiction of these characters, their lives can suddenly just be taken over by these sensational events or occurrences, like, spoiler, during the night before a funeral procession. Through the window, they saw a light rain of tiny yellow flowers falling. They fell on the town all through the night in a silent storm, and they covered the roofs and they blocked the doors and smothered the animals who slept outdoors. So many flowers fell from the sky that in the morning the streets were carpeted with a compact cushion, and they had to clear them away with shovels and rakes so that the funeral procession could pass by. So these kind of magical events are glazed over as if they're totally normal, and they're littered throughout the book. From one character being followed everywhere they go by yellow butterflies to another that can kind of expand and contract their weight at their own will. One of the other things I loved about this book was the way that Marquez can describe things. I don't think I have ever read someone that has such an eloquent way of painting a picture that you can immediately pick up on. And this is sometimes a problem. Sometimes you kind of read a book and you get a whole bunch of descriptive terms and you kind of go, yeah, I kind of get what you're talking about. Here, Marquez just has this way of choosing the exact vocabulary that you go, yep, totally know what you mean, straight away. And that made the book really quite remarkable for me. And that might be just a me thing. It may just be a way that he's written that appeals to me specifically, but I'd be really interested to know if other people found his imagery to be as clear as what I did. Now, there is a lot else I could get into in this book in terms of analysis, as it charts an insight into the history of Colombia's civil wars, colonialism, plantation economy, but I really don't want to make this analysis that gives away too many spoilers. I may do a proper analysis in a later video once I've given the book a second read through, which I'm totally going to do. But it's enough to say that there is kind of a deep-rooted history of plantation culture, and it does play a vital role to central events in the book. However, if you're worried that this is going to be a history lesson, do not let that turn you off. It is totally not a history lesson in any normal means. The book is kind of more a poetic insight into the human condition, where characters can die and disappear as quickly as they come, where moments and even entire people are just left forgotten and abandoned to their fates and to memory, and memory itself is kind of this corruptible thing. This book went from one that at the start I struggled with it, but at the end, on those last pages, I immediately wanted to pick it up and read it again. It's kind of left you with goosebumps and that, wow, it's something so special, this book. So I was totally thrilled to realize that this author is the author that wrote Love in the Time of Cholera. I did not click until after I'd read this book. And Love in the Time of Cholera, I had heard kind of mixed things about, that it's a really difficult read. A lot of people don't like it. So now that I know how much I love this book, I'm really excited for it. Also, it just happens to be kind of a feature role in my favorite rom-com, which is called Serendipity. So now I'm just kind of dying to read Love in the Time of Cholera, which I will do a review on soon. It's also really left such an impact on me that I've also purchased another book of Gabriel García Márquez, which is called, I'm struggling to think of what it's called. I think it's called Fortune of a Death Foretold, or Prophecy of a Death Foretold. No, Chronicle of a Death Foretold. That's what it's called, Chronicle of a Death Foretold. And that's a slightly shorter novel of his, but I have that one on order and we'll do a review of that one as well soon. So you may have already guessed it, but this book, while it is not a light read, not a specifically easy read, I highly, highly, highly recommend it, especially if you're a little bit of an existentialist or a little bit of a nihilist. I think you're going to really be drawn to this book. Totally love it. I would give it a 5 out of 5. Till next time.